Nalini, over to you.
Thanks, Nico. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to our third session on our online session. Let me just share my presentation. And as Nico mentioned, I am the provincial coordinator for the Eskom Expo in KZN, and Nico is provincial coordinator, or PC as we refer to ourselves, for Free State. This is our email address, and today we're focusing on the social science type of projects. Just to recap, I don't know if there's anybody joining us for the first time today, but just to recap what we've done so far. On day one, the 3rd of April, we started with the research plan, and we spent some time discussing how to write up that plan. So day two, which was yesterday, Nico presented on the engineering type and computer science type of projects, and he even showed us some completed examples of the type of projects. So today I'm looking at how to write up a social science project, and tomorrow we'll be looking at the scientific investigation, and we have a guest presenter from UKZN who will he will do an actual scientific investigation while he will be explaining the project, how to do that type of project. So please do join us again and send the invite out to others as well, because that one will be quite interesting. Right, now for my section on social sciences, just to remind you again, these are the documents that learners need to have: the written work, the research plan. So today we'll be looking at research plans specifically for social science, and we'll be looking at some completed projects, actual projects done by learners on the report, the completed report. So we'll look at research plans and reports, and if we have time, we will go in and look at the abstract of one of the learners. So the abstract is done at the end. Going back, the research plan is done at the beginning because it's a plan. It's in future tense. And remember, we did talk about the research. All the written work actually should be done in third person, where we must avoid using I and my, right? In all of the written work, from the research plan, report, abstract. So here we are, these are our 4 types of projects, right? And we at social science type of project. The focus here is on exploring human behavior. So we're also looking at hypothesis testing in the social science project. The only difference here is we are collecting our data. Our data collection doesn't involve experiments like in the scientific application, but we're focusing on collecting our data about human behavior from humans. And we'll talk as we go along about qualitative or quantitative data, right? Qualitative referring to smaller sample groups, and quantitative referring to larger sample groups, right? So these are 2 aspects that are specific to social sciences. And also with social sciences, we're looking at social issues that affect human behavior. Okay. We also have a social science category, right? Usually what happens is the social science type of projects fall within the social science category into one of the subcategories of anthropology, education, human behavior. There's human settlements and there's psychology. But the social science type of project can be done in any category, okay? So as a type of project, it can be done in any of the 13 categories, or it can apply to just the social science category. It's just to give you an understanding of where social science fits in. So this is our template of the research plan. And this is, I want to actually end the slideshow here, and let me share my screen so that I can toggle between the different types of projects that I want to share with you, right? Nope, I don't want to share my presentation. I want to share the template. Okay, I'm hoping you're seeing the research plan template, which you will find. Just let me know, Nicole, are we looking at the research plan template?
Yes, we
Social
are.
sciences? Okay,
Yes.
so just to let you know where you're going to find this template is you download this from our website, download it in Word format, and you'll find all the 4 templates here. So just continue to scroll down. There's some instructions on how to write up the research plan, and there it is here again about the third person. And as I go through the research plan, I'm going to throw out some questions to the participants, right? So we're just going to move down till we get to the research plan we want to use for today. Right, there we are. Social science. Okay, learners will just fill in their name, category from the list of, the topic, and then the category from the 13 categories. And sometimes you might be required to put in the subcategory. Okay, so I'm just going to run through the headings, right, with some brief explanation of, just to remind you of what must be done under each heading. And then we will look at a completed research plan. Okay, so the first aspect, the first heading is the introduction, where you're just giving a brief 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs, a brief description of what the research study is going to be all about. That's the introduction paragraph, right? Then the next heading is the literature review. Now, under this section of literature review, you're going to mention the background reading that was done. Learners need to have a thorough knowledge of that research area that they are studying, a good knowledge. And the only way they can do that is by reading, going through literature, right? And I did mention on day 1, try and use Google Scholar rather than just Google, okay? These are the aspects under the literature review that must be covered. What research has already been done? How will this research, how will your research be different and new? Very important to define the concepts that you are using. Whatever concepts, even a simple thing like the word litter or poverty, explain what that means. Because when you're writing, remember I said this previously, you're writing for someone else to read the project. You're writing for the judge. So you're writing under the assumption that the judge does not know anything about your project. And when we say explain, define the concepts. So if I had to explain poverty, as in someone that may be very poor, unemployed, and then that's the kind of concept that's going to run through my project. So this is why explaining the concepts is very important, because my definition of poverty might be very different from someone else's definition. This is why it's important to explain the concepts. And then, of course, what are the benefits? Who is going to benefit from your study? What and who? This is very important. Because it might be someone in education. It might be someone in the food industry or someone in government. So it's important that you address your research towards a certain target audience, right? Then the next heading is the problem statement, right? What we're writing under the problem statement, you're basically exploring the problem, you're explaining what the problem is and what the issue is all about. Yesterday, Nico used a very nice approach of funneling. So your introduction, you start off being very broad, right? Just imagine a funnel. Your introduction is your broad discussion of the topic. When you come to the problem statement, you are now at the very bottom of the funnel, where you're now specifically talking about the problem that you want to address, right? Then you've got the research question. The research question, which is kind of like your aim, reworded as a question. You are basically stating what you want to achieve through this research. You are very specific about what do you want to achieve. And you state this in the form of the question. It can be one question, or it can be more than one question, right? It should be more than one. It can have one or more than one question. Just to remind everyone that, remember, as this is a Word document, all the learner has to do is to delete and type in their information, right? Whatever it is that they are doing. So the research question also, please make sure that it is clear, concise, specific, must not have a yes or no response. You shouldn't just be able to just say yes or no to that question, right? It must be something that can be investigated. Then you have the aim, which is a statement, right? It's kind of like your research question that's now stated as, written as a statement. What is the main objective? And then the hypothesis, which is, again, it's a statement. It's your hypothetical guess, an educated guess that you are taking. And it's a guess that you will also be taking based on this aspect, your literature review, based on the literature review, right? So you're making an educated guess based on what you have read about. Now, it's important that your hypothesis must be testable. You must be able to test it scientifically. So that's important, right? And on our first day, we spoke about the project having measurable results, things that we can measure, okay? Your hypothesis will tie in with your conclusion, where you're going to accept or reject the hypothesis. So your whole project is focused on on testing the hypothesis or rejecting it, right? So in social science, we also have variables because we have a hypothesis. We also have the variables. Variables, again, it must be measurable. There must be something that you're measuring, even in the questions. Now, because this is a social science project, you're not going to actually conduct experiments with equipment. Remember, you're getting your information from people. But still we have, if you're looking at cause and effect type of variables, right? Nico, tell me, are we still good? You're still seeing my research plan?
We're all good. You can continue.
Okay. Cause and effect, you need to list the variables. These are the three types of variables. You have your independent variable, your dependent, your controlled. So the independent variable, just to remind you, is the factors or those variables that you've changed. You as the researcher, what did you change, right? That is what is your independent variable. In most cases, it might be the sample group, the people within your sample group, right? Not necessarily, but that might be one of your independent variables. Your dependent variable is the factor that you are measuring. Now, in social science, in most cases, the questions that you are asking the participants, that is what you are measuring. You're measuring their responses. Okay, so that's the dependent variable, the responses of the participants to your questions. Controlled or fixed variables, that needs to be kept constant throughout the experiment. Start to finish, what are you going to keep the same. Some cases, it might be the sample group. In other cases, it might be the environment. Okay, what will you keep the same? Most probably in some cases, it is the actual questionnaire that you're going to hand out, right? You're going to control the questions because all the participants will answer the same questions. Now, under method, okay, what is the overall design of your research? What type of study? Is it qualitative or quantitative, or is it a mixed method? So by the mixed method, we mean, are you using both qualitative and quantitative? Do you want to hand out questionnaires to hundreds of children? And then after that, you want to narrow it down, and then you want to do interviews with a selected group of participants. So that is what they're talking about, the overall design. Is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? Is it a mixed method? Right? Then how will you collect your data? Are you going to use observations or interviews? How are you going to collect the data? So explain, what are you going to use? The instruments, right? Instruments are things like questionnaires. That is your instrument. Or you can have an observation checklist. If you just want to observe the behavior of children, maybe why do they misbehave when a certain teacher is in the class? They behave when the maths teacher is there, but they don't behave when the life orientation teacher. So then you want to use, you're going to look at observations, right? You're not going to hand out questionnaires. And the instrument there that you could use is an observation checklist. So that is what we're talking about under instrument. What instrument will you be using to collect the data? And then number 4, will you be using different instruments? How will you cross-check your data? How will you cross-check that your data is reliable? This is very important with social sciences, because you'll find that in most cases, you're handing out a questionnaire to participants, and you don't know how honest they're going to be in their responses. So usually you need to have another method. So in most cases, we'll hand out questionnaires, and then we might do an interview with a small sample group. That in a way helps us to, we call that triangulation in social science projects. We try and triangulate the data to ensure that it is reliable. Reliable meaning that we can trust the data. Okay. Describe the sample. Very important. When you're doing this research plan, you need to give a lot of thought to the section on the method. How many participants are you going to use? How are you going to select the participants? Is there going to be a specific age group? All right. And then who is your target group? Are you looking at a specific grade? Is it gender only? Maybe you only want to look at females, right? And also, is it going to be representative of the larger population? So if you're looking at children at a school, that sample group that you choose must be representative of the total number of learners in the school. That is what this point number 6 means, right? So think about the target group. How are you going to select these participants? Where are they located? Are they going to be children from the school? Are they going to be people from the community? Is it going to be parents? Are you looking at only principals of schools, right? The age group, we spoke about this, and gender, okay? And this is important. How will you select the sample? Are you going to use random sampling, meaning that you're just going to hand out the questionnaires to all the children? That's random. Or are you going to use deliberate sampling, where you're going to use a specific criteria, for example, the age group in a grade, or are you going to use the gender in a grade? So that is deliberate, right? Random, you just could hand it out to anyone and everyone. So that's the difference. Explain what type of sampling you're going to do. Okay, and also under the method, it is very important for you to draft out the questions that you want to ask. Because remember, the teacher is going to sign your research plan. The teacher needs to check that the questions you've indicated are relevant to your hypothesis. Remember, everything must go back to your research question, your aim, and your hypothesis. All of this must tie in. So the questions that you ask in your method section, draft out that questionnaire or observation checklist or whatever you're using. Draft it out. Let the teacher have a look at it. You can even do a pilot study. Give it to a few learners or a few people that are not involved in not going to be your actual sample group. Give them the questions to answer first and see, look at their responses. It will give you an idea whether your the answers that you're going to get will help, will support or reject your hypothesis, right? Then under your data analysis, tell us how you're going to analyze the data. Draw a little table of how you're going to record the data, how you're going to record the responses for question 1, 2, 3. Draw that here under data analysis. Basically, what are you going to look for, right? And then under ethics, remember the consent form for the participants. All participants must sign a consent form. Nico, just remind me at the end, we need to look at the ethics checklist, right? Before we finish off, so that we can identify specific aspects that apply to social science. So all the participants that are part of your study need to give you consent, that they agreed to be part of the study, and that they agree for their responses to be used in your study, right? So that's a kind of consent that they need to sign, and then they continue with the answering your questions. This also applies even if you're just doing an interview, okay? Also note, the participants do not give their real names. They need to use pseudonyms, or you can just write participant 1, 2, and so on, okay? If you don't need to know their gender for your study, then there's no need to write gender in your question. I hope I've covered everything there under ethics and the anonymity of the participants. If the participants are minors below the age of 18, the parent also needs to give consent for the learners to be part of the study. If the questionnaires are going to be handed out at a school, then the principal needs to give the learner permission. So the learner will write a letter to the principal stating what the research is about, and they want to interview learners at school. Then the principal also needs to give a letter giving permission. And all of this consent forms and everything must be put into the data file, right? Don't forget to keep your journal. Remember, we are recording in our journal everything, but the actual consent forms go into the data file. Safety, be mindful of the safety in terms of the participants that you choose. So, for example, now you decide you want to look at, there was an issue recently in the news about prisoners and the security of prisoners and things like that. Now, if you think you want to go into a prison and interview prisoners, do you think that is a safe project for a learner? Any participant you want to respond? A learner that wants to investigate safety of prisoners. Do you think that that kind of a topic would be safe for a learner? Anyone? Just unmute and shout out. Yes or no? I'm not getting any response.
It's all quiet, yeah. Anyone?
No. No.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you very much. That is an
No.
absolute.
No.
Thank you. Right. So now I know that you guys are listening. Yes. So you have to look at your
A very
safety.
big no.
Yes, definitely no, right? So that's very important. And this is why the teacher has to sign this. The teacher needs to check that the learner is not violating any safety issues. The learner is not going to put themselves in harm's way while doing the research, okay? And then we've got time frames, when you're going to do what for your project. And of course, the last one here, the references list. It says a minimum of 3 references, but please note you can do more than 3. And remember the Harvard referencing method, right? That's what we use, okay? And we have a referencing guide which you can download from our website. Teacher, mentor, even if it's a parent that's a mentor, or if you've got someone from the community that's mentoring your project, remember the mentor needs to put comments, and the mentor needs to have their comments, and the mentor needs to sign. Okay? Are we
Yes.
good with the template? Is everybody understanding the template of the research plan?
Yes.
All right. I take that as a yes.
Yes.
Okay. I want to now move on to an actual template of an actual research plan that was done by a learner. Okay. Right, Nico, just let me know if you are seeing the research plan that says introduction. Just confirm with me, please.
Yes, yes, I can see that. Thank you.
Right. So there's a short introduction, right? This is a research plan. And what is the learner trying to investigate here? A short, brief introduction about unemployment, and the problem is that school. Here is the learner now alluding to the actual problem, that the fact that schools are stifling learners' creativity. So now the learner is sort of leading us to what the problem that he is investigating in this project. I don't know if it's a he or a she. I'm just saying, right? And here goes the background research. So the learner talks about the chalk and talk method, and here is some in-text referencing, which we spoke about. I'm just going to highlight this one. Robinson 2014, that creativity is important in education literacy, right? So the learner is supporting what they are saying by using another researcher, Robinson, who wrote something in 2014, okay? And it goes on, and here the learner also talks about deschooling and explains a little about deschooling. That's the literature review. Because this is a research plan, you'll see that the literature review is not very extensive, right? Now we go on to the problem statement. And what happens here? The learner is explaining the current education system is not yielding the best results. This project was done in 2020, I would think. So the pandemic, the learner's talking about the pandemic, had some gaps in the education system. And the investigation, here we come to the problem. The investigation seeks to find out whether a change in the education system would help learners perform better. The research question, there it is. How does the education system affect learners' creativity? Remember, we said the question mustn't be a yes or a no, right? So if it was a yes or a no, the learner could have said, if the learner had started with does, then you could say yes or no. But in this case, the learner managed to, let's undo that. And the learner says, where am I now? How does the education? So the learner is looking at, there's something measurable here. How does it affect? Okay. The aim to find out how the education system affects learners' creativity. Again, linked to the research question. Hypothesis, the educated guess, a more child-centered, a more child-orientated way of teaching promotes creativity. So this is what the learner is saying. He believes, or he or she believes, that a child-centered way of teaching promotes creativity, and will help learners do better in schools. Okay? So this is what the learner is going to be trying to prove in this research. Let's look at the procedure now. Let's just see how well does this learner explain about the sample group. Do we know the sample size? Let's just see, do we know the sample size? I'm hoping everybody can see this and can do a quick read.
Yeah.
Can you
thanks
guys
for
read it?
joining in as well.
Do we know the sample size? Anyone?
You can unmute, guys, and answer.
Yes.
What
Yes,
is the
Nadine.
size? What's the sample
Right.
size?
It's 100.
There you go. So we do have some information about the sample size.
Yes,
Okay.
100.
Do we know? Thank you. Do we know where the learner is going to be conducting the study? Do we know the environment? Do we know where? Where is this 100 participants going to come from? Do we know where? It says in the study, the researcher will use questionnaire and interview method as a data collection method. The interview method will give the researcher a chance to interact with the respondents. The researcher will present the data in part. Do we know where the learner is going to conduct the study? Anyone? Or is that information missing? Would you say the information is missing? Or is it there?
Yes. The
Is it
information
missing?
is not there. Yes, it's missing.
It's missing. Thank you very much. Right?
Yes.
So the information is missing. Do you see how important it is now in the section under method for you to tell us where are these participants going to come from? What age group are these participants going to be? Is a learner looking at 100 high school students because they just spoke about creativity? Is it going to be primary school, grade 3s, grade 4s? We don't know anything. You see? So that is why it's so important under the section of method to have all this information. Do we know what, how the learner is going to conduct, the tool that the learner is going to be using? Do we know if the learner is using questionnaires or interviews? Do we know the method? Do we know the method of how the learner is going to conduct the study? Do we have a method? Anyone?
Yes.
Yes, we
What
have
is the method?
Yes.
What is what? Okay.
Questionnaire and the interview.
interview.
Questionnaire and the interview, right? So now we know the learner
Yes.
is doing both, and maybe 100 questionnaires. I doubt very much 100 interviews, but this is where the learner should have explained. For me, this is where I need more information, right? So here I'm looking at the project now as a judge. And you also, when you're looking at the learner's research plan, look at the project, look at the plan as if you were a judge. Make sure all the information is there, right? So we know the learner's using pie graphs. We don't have an example of the actual questions. Let's go on that. Then the learner goes on to ethics, right? So we don't have the questions. Ethics, the learner says, the researcher will not mention any names, right? That's good. So which means the anonymity of the participants will be maintained. No names will be mentioned. What else? The researcher, there's the written permission that we were looking for. Remember that one? Consent. It's there, it is stated. And then also the participant signature, right? So now the learner is covered. Okay. Time frames. Let's look at the time frames. I like this one because it clearly outlines and we have a clear indication of when the learner is going to do what in the project. When is the learner going to start the questionnaires? When is the questionnaires going to be handed out, right? But there's also information missing because we don't know collection of questionnaires is in March and then we would have liked to see more information about when the project would be completed. Okay, now, are you looking at references, right? I'm hoping you're seeing references. Can you tell me if this is the correct way of how the references should be done? Anyone? Any participant? Is this the correct format of how the references should be done? Or is it incorrect?
If not correct,
It's
what is
incorrect.
wrong?
It's incorrect. Thank you. What could be wrong? Okay, I'm glad you know that it is incorrect. Okay, let's leave it at that. And we'll find one where
Okay.
the referencing is correct. Let me see if I can get to one where the referencing is correct. Okay, let's go further down. I just want to get to one where the referencing is done correctly. There you go. Okay. Are you seeing a reference page there, Nico? Just confirm.
Yes, we are.
Okay, there. And this is how the referencing should be done, right? The website, the URL, and the date at which it was accessed. So in this project, the information was accessed on the 10th of December, 2019. Okay, so we have a referencing guide on our website. If you're not sure how to do the referencing, please download that reference guide. Okay, let's see if we can quickly look at another research plan. Okay, here's another one. Okay, and in this case, the learner is looking at the topic in this project here is the effect of the same language subtitles on memory. Okay, the learners put the problem here right on the top. There it is here. Does watching a video with the same language subtitles, so the SLS refers to same language subtitle, increases the knowledge retained from the video compared to watching the video. Okay, so this is another research plan. Nico, I think I'm not sure if the previous research plan didn't have variables, but here is a research plan now with the variables indicated.
Yeah, so yeah, the other one didn't have.
Right?
It didn't
So here is
identify.
the variables. Okay. I'm not sure, maybe you guys already picked this up where I've highlighted in red. I think you already picked this up because you guys seem to be paying attention that the learner initially had we, right? And I just removed this because remember we said the learner must write in third person. So initially the learner said, we believed, I think it is a pair project. Let me just quickly check. Is that why they are saying we? There's two learners, right? So remember we said learners must write in third person. So instead of we, right, to write in third person, you can say it is believed that the people who watch the video with subtitles will score better on the test and therefore would have remembered more than those who watch the video without subtitles. Okay, so just to bring your attention here to variables, because the previous project did not have variables. Okay, and here what is the learner measuring is the score on the test that the participants saw. Both, there will be two groups. Let's look at the fixed variable, right? The same test, there's two groups. Just going to highlight that. It's the same test for two groups. Now, in this case, there's two sample groups. One where the learners are going to watch the video with the subtitles, the same language subtitles, and one where there is not going to be subtitles, right? So that's the sample group here. And you can see there's a little bit more. There's more information about the sample group. Divide the sample groups into A and B. Okay, and in this case, the learner sent the questionnaires via email because this was during COVID, or you can even create a Google form, to send out your questionnaires. So that can also be done. Okay, the data analysis, and there's a bibliography done a little bit better. Okay, so I just want to go back to the crisis in education, and this is the completed project now. I just want to go to the results section. Since we've looked at, I hope everybody's still following me. Oh, Nico, now we've got variables in the report, right? We've got the variables here in the report. It wasn't in the research plan. Okay. And just to show you how the learners now recorded their responses to the questions. Okay. The learner doesn't have an example. So the first one, they're comparing the males and females. So here the learner is clearly looking at gender as a factor in the study, right? And then the response, the analysis of the graph. 44% of the responses were men and 56 were women. Okay. There's another one here. There's a crisis in South Africa, right? Yes or no, simple yes or no question. So all participants were asked if they thought there was a crisis in education, and then the graph on their responses. And as you can see, 88% of the participants responded yes. Okay. The learner also looked at the age frequency, the age group. So now we know that there were different age groups. All this information should have actually been included in the research plan, right? And that's the outline of the age group, the effect of, so now here in figure 7, which probably the question was the effect of teacher-centered teaching methods. Learners were asked this question, right? And obviously, according to the graph, 41% indicated that they believe a teacher-centered teaching method is far better. Okay. And then in figure 8, in response to the question, learners are spectators or participants in the teaching and learning process. 51% of the learners felt that they were spectators in the learning process, and only 49 of them. Okay. The use of science labs, which ties in with the literature review that was done. There was some information about science labs and the effect of practicals. So that information ties in with this question, the use of science labs at schools. So there was simple yes or no, or sometimes. That was the question. And you can see the response. Computer skills being taught at school. And the choices they had was always, really, or never. So from this graph, it's also important to make sure you use the right type of graph for the responses, right? Or for indicating the responses. Okay. I think I just want to quickly go on to the discussion. All right. Discussion interpretation here in this section. This is now obviously the report. It's done after the learner has completed the project. The learner is now discussing the results and why, and trying to understand why they achieved the results that they did. All right. So that's what's happening in this section. And there's a suggestion here that the education crisis can be solved by learner-centered teaching methods. Okay, let's look at errors and limitations. Was this learner able to identify any errors and limitations? Okay, so one limitation the researcher anticipated was the subjectivity. all right, which is understandable as it's social science. And then the learner says, to reduce this threat, questionnaires with objective questions were constructed. So they just telling us how. And another limitation was that the research focused on rural schools. So the learners realized that this was a limitation of the project. So perhaps when the learner continues or further recommendations, which is here, recommendations, they could do the study using a wider group, both urban and rural schools. Okay, and in the conclusion, let's see, does the learner tie in the hypothesis? The hypothesis was proven to be correct, as it was found that our current education system affects learners' creativity. But what I'm thinking here, this is my thinking, that the learner is not supporting the conclusion by giving us information from the results. The learner is telling us that the hypothesis is correct, but is not telling us why, right? The learner should actually quote from the results section. Give us information. Why are you saying that? Because if we go back up here, to any one of these, if 64% of the learners think that science, using a science lab is going to improve education, then that should be, for example, indicated here. Okay. I don't know, Nico, is there anything else that can be added here? To me, this conclusion looks a bit incomplete.
You are quite correct. So it's important to substantiate your conclusion based on the results that you've obtained in your investigation.
Okay. I don't think I have time now to go through any more projects. I was hoping to be able to do that. Are there any questions? Are there any questions in the chat so long?
I just put up something at the beginning. If you could perhaps just clarify the difference between a qualitative and a quantitative study. Maybe if you have some rudimentary examples of the difference between the two. That's just for the interest of the learners that are in here. And then just a reminder about having a look at the ethics checklist again and those aspects that are relevant to social science projects.
Okay. Let me see. With the qualitative study, if there's participants in the chat that can also come in here, do feel free to do so. A qualitative study, you have a smaller sample group. It's a more focused study. You can even have, you can do a case study where you're just looking at one school. That could be a qualitative study. You're only looking at, let's say it was education crisis in a particular school, in that school that the learner is, then that could be a qualitative study. On the other hand, it could become a quantitative study where the learner is looking at education crisis in many different schools. Now, in the case of this study, the crisis, you can see that the learner looked at, I'm not sure this is a research plan, the learner interviewed, we don't know how many they interviewed, but we know the participants were 100. So this would be considered a quantitative study because we've got a large sample group. Okay. I'm just trying to see if I can find another project. This one on investigating consumer awareness and knowledge of information on food labels. Let me see if this one has a different sample group. Okay, let's just run through this one. Okay, this is an example of an abstract. You know, we did speak about abstract at the introduction. So this is an example of the abstract of how the learner is now summarizing the project. And as a judge, this is what we read first. We read the abstract. Okay. So the topic here is investigating consumer awareness and knowledge of information on food labels. Any information about the sample group. There's a lot of information, the in-text referencing from other countries. Is there information about South Africa, the current situation in South African schools? And looks like this is related to food science. I just want to get to the method and policies. There's a lot of literature review, as you can see in this project. Remember, I did mention in the beginning, maybe when you're starting the abstract, you might not have a lot of literature review, but as you get into your project, you will find that you do need to do a lot of background literature, right? Let's just see now here. Here we come to the method. Okay, there we've got the investigative question. The question, are learners, there's a research question here, right, which the learner would be addressing in the project. Are learners in schools aware of the nutritional value, food value of the food sold at the tuck shop? So now we get a sense of the learner is looking specifically at the school, and the hypothesis is that learners are not aware of what ingredients are on the food labels. Okay, we're trying to see the difference between the qualitative and the quantitative. Let's see if this learner tells us, gives us this information. To understand the severity of awareness, we don't know that one. And then there's interviews, we don't have the sample size. Okay, but from what we are looking here is there's questionnaires that went out to children. Then there's interviews that was conducted with the tuck shop owner. And then there is the headmasters of the school was also interviewed. Okay, so this step 1 and step 2 could be considered a qualitative study because it's a small group. Step 3, the questionnaires went out to children. It's not quite clear how many. That part could be a quantitative study. So the method of this study is this would actually be a mixed method. That's what we would refer to this type of study, a mixed method study.
Okay, Nalini, sorry
So I don't know if that
interrupting you.
answers the question. And we have got like 3 minutes left.
Yeah,
So I'm definitely going to stop there.
Just to inform you, one of the participants raised their hands now, and now I don't see with what.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. It's Nolo Vuyo. Please go ahead, unmute, and ask your question.
Thank you, Nalin. I would like to check, is there a way whereby a learner can use only qualitative method or use a quantitative method? Thank you.
Yes, that is up to the learner. The learner can decide. Like the one on the education crisis was purely, let's go back to the education crisis, the research plan. Not that one, sorry, not that one. This one. This is a purely quantitative study. Quantitative, because 100 questionnaires went out. This is purely quantitative. Okay. It all depends on what's the research question, the hypothesis, and what does the learner want. That is what will determine whether the learner is doing the qualitative, the quantitative, or both. Okay.
Okay.
Is there any other questions there, Nicole? Any other questions on the chat?
No, not that I'm aware of. If you could just quickly, before we end, look at the ethics checklist for the
Okay.
aspects relevant to.
Okay, I just want to just see if this one's got anything about the method. Okay, I don't have it opened on my laptop. Let me see if I can get to it. Oh dear, now you're seeing all of my
Stuff.
yeah, you're just seeing everything that's on my laptop at the moment. So the projects that we've discussed, we've got examples of these projects. You can just contact Nico and myself and we can share them with you. Got quite a lot on social science. So, and I must admit, these are projects that learners have done. So you'll find errors in these projects. The projects that I've been presenting have been before they've been corrected. So this is the checklist that we're talking about. Okay. And so remember, we did say, once you go through this, if there's an X anywhere, medical procedures, which is not allowed, any human or animal testing, it's not allowed. And what pertains specifically to social sciences is, I think it's this one, Nico, the risk to physical, emotional, or mental well-being. I hope you can see it. Is it large enough?
Yeah, that's good enough to read, yes. Thank you.
Right. So these are some of the things that, particularly for social science, conducting a test or experiment which involves the risk, physical, emotional. So even if it's like learners with learning disabilities, now if you decide that you want to do a project, on how these learners learn, and then you want to conduct interviews, this sort of thing has to be done under the supervision of a medical trained professional. So it could be a social worker, could administer the test and things like that, not the learner themselves. So that one, right? I think there was another one about stress test. Am I getting to it? There's it here, psychological tests on humans, tests that affect the participants' psychological well-being, all right, or intelligence. So these are things that are not allowed, okay? If your testing or your questions are going to ask this kind of information, then definitely you're going to have to, that's going to be an X, right? There's another one here for social science, the vulnerable groups, right? Especially elders, minors, disabled, abused victims. We find lots of times the learners want to look at abuse and abuse in women particularly. So be very careful about projects like this. Please ensure that this is done under the supervision of a social worker or a trained professional, a psychologist, who will be asking. If there's questions that need to be asked, the learner can work with the psychologist or the social worker, and then that professional will administer the interviews or that sort of thing. Okay. And there's another one here, emotionally challenged. So be careful with that one. There's one more here, potential risky. We spoke about the prisoners. Yes, I was right, Nico. Prisoners is indicated, drug addiction, violent people. So the learner cannot do a study that's going to put themselves at risk. Be also very careful with this one, research involving sensitive issues, race, religion, culture, and things like that, right? Just steer away from these types of projects. Is there anything else? Offensive photographs. This might be the case in social science, where if someone is doing a project about abuse, and then they decide to put pictures of women abuse and things like that, that sort of thing is not allowed, right? So just make sure you're not guilty of that. Collecting sensitive, this is another one. collecting sensitive or confidential information. Also an absolute no-no. So for example, you can't ask someone the HIV status, right? And things like that. Medical records, you can't do that as the learner. But if the information was provided to you by the doctor could give the learner a letter and say, this is the medical records. Again, strictly under the supervision of a medical professional. This one here, learners, you know, they do this kind of social science study. They want to take blood pressure and things, learners running up and down the stairs and before exercise and after exercise. They're not allowed to do that. Okay. They're not allowed to do that. So just to be mindful of that. What else is there, Nicole? We spoke about brand names and plagiarism extensively, I think in previous workshops. Am I right? Yesterday you spoke about plagiarism and the need for in-text referencing.
Yes.
Okay.
And we spoke
and also
about
plagiarism. Yeah. There's it here, without permission. This applies specifically to our social sciences. So permission from the participants. Also, any text and data that you download from the internet, you must provide the URL. Brand names we spoke about as well. Make sure they do not appear, and of course the referencing. Okay. I don't know if there's any other questions, any comments. This one about the menstrual cup, just to show you about referencing. There's a source for this one. This is how the learners indicated the source. The picture is from the internet. Okay, just to show you that. Any questions? Any other questions?
I see nothing in the chat. No one is raising a hand either.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing there. I'll just put up contact details again.
Yes, please, while you're doing that, we've got a hand raised again from Noluvuyo. Please go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to check now, Nalin, that we can get the record. Is it possible that we can get the recordings of the previous workshop? Due to load shedding, I was unable to attend the workshop. So can we be able to get the recordings of the previous workshop? Is it possible?
Nico?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do is after the session, I do make a WeTransfer and I send it to everyone who registered. I'll be doing that for all the sessions. And then on the other hand, our national office is loading everything onto YouTube. So if you just go onto our YouTube channel, look for Eskom Expo for Young Scientists, you'll find our channel there. Like and subscribe, please. And you should find the first session has been uploaded there. So the session on the research plan in general should be uploaded. And I'm sure by this afternoon, the session of yesterday would also be uploaded. But what I do in the email is I do provide all the links for what we have up until today. So all 3 links will be uploaded to the videos. I'll send it to you.
I'm just quickly showing our participants how to get to our Eskom Expo. So just go into YouTube, or there is a direct link, right? So there's our Eskom Expo here, Eskom Expo, and videos, all the videos, just to show you that. All the videos
you see
are
the very
here.
first one. There's the first one. Can you see it there?
Oh, there you go. It's already up. There you go. The one that we did on Monday.
On Monday.
It's already up on YouTube, right? Okay, there's videos of everything that we've discussed. This is your go-to place, and our website is your other one, where you're going to get all the information. Okay, that's how you get to our YouTube channel if you're not sure. Okay. Can I now go back to, okay. Thank you, Nicole. That's all for me.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining. We trust that we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll be looking at the scientific investigation in a little detail. I look forward to that presentation, as it is someone external from UKZN who will be presenting. And as we heard, they'll be doing an actual experiment. And I'm looking forward to that. Please make sure you join us tomorrow. Have a good afternoon and goodbye for now.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Stay safe. We hope to see you tomorrow. Bye.
Nalini, there's a question. Why have you not subscribed to the Expo YouTube channel?
I do go to the
Bye,
YouTube
thank
channel
you.
constantly.
Please like
Okay,
and
noted.
subscribe, Nalini. Like and subscribe.
Okay, will do. You know my struggle with social media. Will do. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.